The sheriff's cruiser pulled up before I'd even finished my morning coffee. Blue lights cut across the calm surface of Lake Redwood, jarring, loud, out of place. Trouble before sunrise. That's never good news. From the cabin porch, I could already see who caused it. Horror. Red windbreaker, sunglasses on too early, clutching a binder like it was a weapon. The new HOA president, Tracy Caldwell. People in town already had a nickname for her. HOA Karen. She was waving the sheriff over like she owned the water, the trees, the air. Sheriff Doyle approached slowly. Old friend. Good man. Nervous face. Logan, morning, he said, thumb hooked behind his belt the way he always did when forced into something dumb. Morning. Coffee? I offered. Same as always. Come. He sighed. Wish I could say yes. But she called it in. He jerked his head toward Tracy, who was practically vibrating with indignation. I leaned on the porch rail. Let me guess, trespassing? Tracy marched right up. This cabin is on private HOA property. If he refuses to vacate, he's committing a felony, she barked, pointing at me like I was a stray dog. Felony? I repeated, amused. She thrust the binder into the sheriff's hand. The bylaws are clear. He must leave immediately or be removed. Sheriff Doyle didn't open the binder. He just looked at me, apologetic. Logan, you know how these things go. Maybe just talk to her? Work it out? I tried, I said. She didn't listen yesterday. Or the day before. Tracy scoffed. You don't own this place. I do. I run things here now. Redwood Lake is under the jurisdiction of the Lakeside Homeowners Association, District 6. That includes this cabin. This cabin, her voice implied. My cabin. The cabin was older than any HOA in this region, built by my grandfather in 1954. The same year he purchased 23,000 acres of land around this lake. The deed still hung above my fireplace. But I stayed quiet. Let her dig her hole. Sheriff Doyle cleared his throat. Tracy, you're new here, so let me say it before we go further. This cabin is. I've read every document, she cut in. This so-called owner doesn't have a registered property number. There's no HOA account. No dues ever paid. If we allow one trespasser to stay, everyone will think they can break the rules. No one was breaking anything. Except her patience. She reached for her phone. I'm escalating this. To who? I asked. The county administrator, she snapped. He'll sign a removal order within the hour. You're done here, Logan. You and your fake ownership story. Doyle winced. Tracy, you might want to slow down. She turned her back to him, already dialing. The sun rose higher, warming the lake, sparkling across it like nothing was wrong. I sipped my coffee, unbothered, calm enough to notice the loons calling across the water. Tracy walked away to speak louder on the phone. Yes, I'm at Redwood Lake. We need county-level enforcement. The man is refusing to leave. That county-level enforcement, she requested? That would be me. But she didn't know that. Doyle's voice dropped to a whisper. You want to intervene now, or? Let her finish, I murmured. She's putting this all on record. Better that way. He scratched the back of his neck. You sure? I'm sure. I'd spent the last decade serving as Redwood County's private land administrator. The title she expected to call for backup, I was that title. Quiet job. Powerful one. Unadvertised. Most people didn't even know it existed unless they read the right deeds. Clearly, she hadn't. Tracy marched back, triumphant. They're pulling property records now. As soon as it hits their system, you'll be removed. I look forward to it, I said. She blinked, thrown off. So, good. Then we're done here. No, I said, lifting my coffee mug to her. We're just getting started. Her jaw tightened. Doyle stared between us. He'd seen enough fights to know this wasn't going to end with paperwork. Across the lake, the morning fog burned off, revealing a near-endless line of pine trees, my family's land, stretching far beyond anything she could imagine. Tracy Caldwell liked power. But she just challenged someone who owned the world she lived in. Tracy didn't return for 2 days. That was the first sign she'd overplayed her hand. People like her don't go quiet unless they're planning something bigger. On the third morning, a letter arrived in a plastic sleeve stapled to my dock post HOA stationery, gold seal sticker, all very official looking. The language was aggressive, condescending, and impressively stupid. Notice of forcible removal. Due to non-compliance and unpaid dues, occupant must vacate the premises within 48 hours. Lakeside HOA, President Tracy Caldwell. I couldn't decide what was funnier, forcible or unpaid dues. When you own the land, there are no dues. I set the notice on the porch and brewed coffee, aware that I'd need documentation. She wanted a public war, a spectacle. And that meant she'd underestimate me again. Evidence gathering. I pulled the original deed from above the fireplace. Thick parchment, a little faded, signed by my grandfather, notarized by a county judge who'd been legendary for hating developers. I took photos from every angle, then photographed the official county seal. I also grabbed the updated files from the cabinet, a digital scan filed 5 years ago when I took the administration role. The folder bore my full authority signature. Not because I needed to defend myself, but because someone in the county offices had entertained her call. Someone had run records on her request. Which meant someone was helping her. That, I needed to know. I headed into town. Redwood wasn't big, one main street, one coffee shop, one gas station that sold bait and homemade pies. People waved the way they always had. No idea a storm was brewing. Visiting the county office. The building was small, brick, unassuming, the kind of place where real power hides. I walked straight to the records desk. Clerk on duty, Brian. Good kid, maybe 24, competent, usually polite. Today, nervous. Hey Logan, Brian said, forcing a smile. You, hear about the HOA situation? That obvious? He produced a folder from beneath the counter before I asked. Figured you'd want to see this. Inside were photocopies of bogus HOA documents Tracy submitted. She'd listed my cabin as an unregistered shack on protected community land. She'd even added a forged photo of the cabin marked abandoned. I chuckled. She thinks I'm squatting. Brian swallowed. She asked us to reassign the parcel. Says the HOA should have jurisdiction. And you entertained that? I asked. Not angry. Just pointed. He shook his head quickly. We didn't approve anything, just recorded the request. It's protocol. But, someone else signed off on a review. That got my attention. Who? I asked. He glanced toward the hallway. County Assessor's Office. New guy. Tom Barrett. Barrett. Different newcomer. Not from Redwood. 2 new faces in less than a month, both trying to expand HOA power? I smelled more than Karen-level entitlement. This was coordinated. I thanked Brian and requested copies. He nodded gratefully, relieved I wasn't here to torch him verbally. I wasn't looking for small battles. Only the real one. Connecting the dots. Back at the cabin, I pinned documents to my corkboard, deed photos, Tracy's forged papers, Barrett's approval stamp. A pattern formed quickly. Tracy wasn't acting alone. Somebody was advising her. Somebody who wanted a piece of Redwood Lake. Developers, maybe. Land speculators. People who saw this lake the way a vulture sees a dying animal. Tracy was the loud, petty distraction. The clumsy front. The real threat hid behind her, someone patient, strategic, smart enough to remain a ghost. I hadn't had a genuine opponent here in years. I almost appreciated it. The trap begins. That night, I emailed the evidence to a private list, 3 people who mattered here. Sheriff Doyle. County Judge Hernandez. Redwood Sentinel newspaper editor, Claire Monroe. Each message was simple. Do not respond. Keep on file. More coming. I wasn't asking for backup. I was building witnesses. HOA meeting announcement. At 9:12 p.m., a text buzzed in from an unknown number. Mandatory HOA meeting tomorrow, 7 p.m., Lakeside Pavilion. Attendance required. Attached was a PDF flyer. I opened it. Against squatters and trespassers. Presentation of evidence plus vote to remove unwanted occupant. They wanted a public spectacle. Chapter 3 of their plan, humiliation. Perfect. That was exactly where I planned to flip the entire game. Final prep. Before bed, I packed a folder. Original deed. Digital registration. Scanned files. Printed county emails. Photos of the cabin from 1954 to now. Copy of the land administrator appointment. And one piece they didn't expect, aerial surveying maps showing every inch of land my family owned, including the roads leading into the HOA's neighborhood. They didn't control the roads. They used mine. They were the trespassers. The meeting would be public. Loud. Heated. Humiliating. Just not for me. As the lake settled into silence, I looked out the window. A figure stood on the far path near the trees. Too still to be casual, too late to be innocent. Not Tracy. Someone watching. This wasn't just HOA drama anymore. This was about territory. And tomorrow, I'd show them who it belonged to. The lakeside pavilion smelled like lake water, coffee, and cheap power. Folding chairs filled the open-air space, neighbors crammed shoulder to shoulder, murmuring with excitement like they were here for a circus. Maybe they were. Tracy had promoted this like a championship fight. A banner hung across the stage. Take back our lake, remove the trespasser. Subtle. Tracy stood center stage, binder in hand, lips pressed so tight they looked stapled. Beside her was a new face, suit, expensive watch, perfect posture. Not HOA. Too polished. The real mastermind. That's Barrett, a whisper came from behind me. The county assessor. The man who'd quietly processed her requests. So the phantom finally crawled into the light. I sat calmly in the third row, folder on my lap. No anxiety. No fear. Just patience. The accusation performance. Tracy stepped to the mic, speaking with the triumphant tone of someone who believed the ending was already written. Thank you all for attending. Tonight, we expose a fraud who has illegally occupied protected community property, a squatter who refuses to pay dues, threatens our security, and disrupts the standards that make Lakeside a safe, beautiful place. Polite applause. A few cheers. One woman booed for dramatic effect. Tracy pointed straight at me. Logan Reed has illegally taken possession of Cabin 14, property owned by the HOA and subject to community governance. Tonight, we will vote to remove him. She nodded to Barrett, who approached the mic with a slick smile. Our office confirms the cabin does not appear in the HOA registry. There's no HOA account under his name, no community registration, no dues ever paid. Per regulations, if an individual cannot prove rightful ownership, the property defaults to community management. Applause again. Louder. The crowd was sold. Perfect. Barrett spread his hands, feigning fairness. We're giving the occupant a chance to prove he belongs here. If he cannot, the decision is simple. Tracy gestured grandly. Logan, please step forward. All eyes landed on me. I didn't rush. I didn't posture. I walked with the quiet confidence of someone walking into their own office, not a courtroom. I set my folder on the podium. Before I begin, I said calmly, I'd like to thank the HOA. You all have done me a favor. By hosting this publicly, you've created witnesses for what I'm about to present. A ripple of confusion went through the crowd. Tracy smiled tightly. Just show us your deed, Logan. I opened the folder. Lifted a photo. This cabin was purchased in 1954 by my grandfather, William Reed. I placed the original deed under the projector camera. The screen filled with an aged parchment full of official stamps and signatures. Murmurs. The crowd wasn't cheering anymore. Barrett leaned in, jaw tense. Tracy's face twitched. I slid the next document forward. And when I inherited the property, I also inherited his title. Land Administrator for Redwood County. Which means, legally, every HOA development here sits on private land overseen by me. I placed the appointment letter on the projector. My name. County seal. Dated 5 years earlier. Silence swallowed the pavilion. I let it sink in. The turn. You've been charging dues, I continued, on land you don't own. You registered houses against property you don't control. You solicited funds, payments, fines on territory owned by the Reed estate. I pointed to the large map now projected, roads, subdivisions, lake access points, all highlighted. You're not managing land. You're squatting on it. A collective gasp. Chairs creaked as people shifted, eyes wide. A man stood up in the back. Are you saying we've been paying fees on someone else's property? Yes, I replied. To someone who doesn't have the right to charge you. It was no longer about me. I wasn't the target. They were. And they finally realized it. Tracy stammered. This can't be correct. The assessor's office reviewed. I turned to Barrett. Let's talk about that. You processed fraudulent claims to transfer privately owned land to an HOA. That's conspiracy to commit property theft. You fabricated jurisdiction. Gasps turned into outrage. He opened his mouth, too slow. Because I placed one last document on the projector. A bomb. A recorded email exchange. Between Barrett and an unnamed developer group planning to buy the lakefront and force out resistant residents. Barrett's signature approving a trial run via HOA dominance. Chaos erupted. Shouts. Demands. Neighbors yelling at Tracy, at Barrett, at each other. Phones out, recording, posting, streaming live. Tracy lunged for the mic, voice cracking. This doesn't change the fact that he doesn't pay dues. He still has to follow rules. I met her eyes. Calm. Deadly. You can't charge dues on land that doesn't belong to you. Then I delivered the blow that ended her regime. And starting tomorrow, I will be issuing trespass warnings to anyone using the private roads without permission from the landowner. Their roads. Their entrances. Their entire access to the lake. I owned it all. Pandemonium. The meeting collapsed into shouting, arguments, accusations. Doyle arrived, too late to save anyone's pride but just in time to escort a sweating Barrett away for further questioning. Tracy tried to follow, but the crowd blocked her, screaming for answers, refunds, justice. I walked out through the chaos like it was just another evening. The lake breeze felt calm again. Until I noticed the same figure from last night, standing near the pavilion shadows. Watching me. Not HOA. Not Barrett. Someone else. And this time, they stepped toward me. Morning on Redwood Lake looked the same as always, mist rising, ducks drifting lazily across the surface, yet everything had changed. The HOA meeting had exploded online overnight. Screenshots, videos, documents, arguments. Some people were furious. Some terrified. Some embarrassed. The phrase trending on the local news app said it all. Hashtag Karen lost the county. I almost felt sorry for Tracy. Almost. Sheriff Doyle called at 8:15 a.m. "Logan, you sitting down?" he asked. "I'm drinking coffee." "Good enough?" He sighed. Barrett lawyered up right after we brought him in. "Guy's not talking. He's too calm. That means one thing, he's backed by someone bigger." "I know," I said. "And we'd like the full deed files you have on the estate. For protection." His tone told me more than his words. The county would stand with me, but only if I remained useful. Power attracts allies only when it's convenient. "I'll bring them this afternoon," I said. "Good. And Logan, keep an eye out. This isn't over." He hung up before I could reply. Fallout begins. By noon, the lakefront was chaos. Neighbors gathered in small clusters, arguing in the street. Boxes of HOA records sat dumped on the pavement beside the community office. Tracy was inside, pacing behind tinted glass, stuck in a storm of her own creation. Word spread fast. The HOA treasury was frozen. Refund demands were piling up. Barrett's developer connections were now under investigation. And the roads? The ones I owned? I hadn't blocked access. I didn't need to. The threat alone was enough. A single handwritten sign by the main entrance read, "Private road use with permission. Power isn't what you take. It's what others think you can take." The visit. Around 3 p.m., a black sedan rolled up my dirt drive. Windows tinted darker than state law allowed. Elegant but aggressive, like it expected the world to move aside. A woman stepped out. Mid-40s, dressed too well for the woods, heels sinking slightly in the soft ground. Confident. Calculated. Dangerous without showing it. She approached with a businesslike smile. "Mr. Reed?" she asked, stopping a polite distance away. "That depends on who's asking." She extended a sleek business card. "Amanda Rusk. Housing Development Coalition. You've caused us disruption." I looked at the card. No phone number. No email. Just a logo, a stylized triangle of 3 overlapping counties. Coalition. Counties. Not just a developer. "We had plans for this lake," she continued calmly. "Now you've made those plans complicated." "Funny," I replied. "No one bothered to ask the landowner first." She gave a small, amused nod. "We assumed the HOA would handle the details. But they rushed it. Sloppy people always ruin good opportunities." "So you were using them," I said. "We use everybody." She didn't blink. "You interfered with a project bigger than you understand, Mr. Reed. I admire your strategy. Truly. But Redwood won't stay untouched forever. There are ways around deeds. Influence. Eminent domain. Politics. Patience. And threats?" I asked, lifting an eyebrow. "Not threats," she said softly. "Forecasts." The breeze picked up, rustling the pines like a warning. "What do you want?" I asked. She leaned in slightly. "Cooperation. You'd make an excellent partner. You know this land better than anyone. Help us build on your terms. Make money instead of enemies." "And if I don't?" The smile vanished. "Then you'll make enemies without making money." She slipped back into the sedan. The door shut quietly, too quiet for someone who'd just declared war. The vehicle disappeared down the road, leaving only engine noise fading into the trees. Uncertain victory. I stood on the cabin porch, eyes on the lake. The water looked peaceful again, but that was just surface illusion. Storms always begin out of sight. Inside, I pinned her card to the board next to Barrett's documents. The 3-county logo stared back at me. Bigger than the HOA. Bigger than one assessor. Not a fluke. A network. They didn't send a hitman. They sent a diplomat. That meant they weren't desperate. They were confident. And confidence is the most dangerous weapon anyone can bring onto my land. Quiet resolution. Tracy resigned a week later. She didn't apologize. She didn't thank anyone. She just vanished from public life, her voice replaced by angry homeowners demanding refunds and explanations. Barrett disappeared from the county roster without a headline, moved somewhere out of state, though I doubted he moved willingly. Redwood breathed easier. But the lake did not forget. Final hint. At night, from the cabin porch, I watched headlights winding along the distant road. Survey trucks. Measuring equipment. People scouting the river bend miles away. They weren't coming for my cabin anymore. They were coming for the county. I sipped my coffee and whispered into the dark. Come and try. The trees answered with silence. The lake held its secrets. The fight wasn't over. It had only just started.